So is it better to watch it over there?
I'm not blocking the screen, am I? All right, this presentation is set up for several different people. So it says, please turn your cell phones off. I'm assuming everybody's already done that. If you want to speak, please step up to the front and use the microphone. And the reason why is this is all being recorded to be put on the internet. So that's why we need you to speak into the microphone. The meeting is also being recorded and being put online. Now, you're not being recorded out there right now. The recording is this direction. So if you want to speak, you need to come up here and speak. I know some people are maybe a little bit shy, but it's because we're trying to get this information out to everyone internationally. What is the ISA? Well, this is what the ISA is, or at least this was the original mission statement. The International Suspension Alliance is a nonprofit organization dedicated to the unification of the body suspension community through education, outreach, and the dissemination of information pertaining to the safe practice of human suspension to practitioners, the general public, healthcare professionals, and legislators. This was our original working mission statement. It has actually changed. The problem that we had was this word right here, legislators. This is all about legality and trying to set up the organization. And right now in the United States, if you set up a nonprofit corporation that lobbies, basically goes out and tries to influence government, you have to go through a lot of hurdles. And this is not even a major priority at this point. So all we've really done is just drop the word legislators off. This was from the advice of both our lawyer and our accountant. So our mission statement still says basically the same thing. We just took one word off. So who is the ISA? Well, there's a problem there. There's really no organization yet. So it's very hard to say that the ISA is anyone because it hasn't been formed. And I know everybody that is interested in this keeps asking, when's this going to happen? When's this going to happen? Well, part of this is that we're going to different places and talking about it because we don't want to just set up an international organization without coming to places like Oslo, without going to places like Italy, without going to Omaha, to Mecca, because we want everyone to get involved. So we can't really say who we are yet because we're really not anything yet. And I can't even say we because the organization doesn't exist because we're trying to get everyone involved. Now, here's what has happened so far. We've established a work group. The reason why we established a work group obviously was to get work done. If we're going to try to set this organization, we need to have a group of people that can actually sit there and discuss and debate and try to figure out the best way to set up this organization. This group right here is not been self-appointed necessarily. It's just been a group of people who have come together and sort of agreed that we're headed towards the same direction. We have the same goals, we have the same objectives, because the hardest part about setting up an organization is getting everybody to agree on something. Once we've got the organization set up, then we can start bringing in membership, then we can start discussing how we want to take the organization. But before we start trying to debate or argue too much, we just have to get a group of like-minded people together. As you see, we've tried to make this as international as possible. However, there are several Americans on here and only one person from other different countries. We hope this changes. We would really like to see a board that has people from all over the world sitting on the board. But right now, because of the work group, these are people that we decided internally get along really well, have experience with setting up organizations, have experience with dealing with problems that arise in the community. Everyone has time to donate. They're able to travel, to go to these conventions. So this is why these people have gotten together. What is the work group? Well, first of all, there is no governing group for the organization, as I explained before. So the work group is simply just a group of people who've gotten together to try to get the organization off the ground. The work group was formed for efficiency because originally when we tried to set this up, we set up a group on Facebook. And if anybody gets online in Facebook, you understand there's a lot of bickering and infighting and somebody has to try and have the last word. And we were getting nowhere. So finally we decided, okay, we're going to take this offline, we're going to get a group of people together, and we're just going to start emailing and calling each other just to be more efficient. It wasn't to be elitist, it was just to get work done. We also had to keep the group small. There's 7 people in the group. The group may grow larger, it may grow smaller. We're trying to keep an odd number of people so that when it comes to things like trying to make a decision with an odd number of people, there's never like a 50-50 split. We've been working directly with organizations like the Association of Professional Piercers and APTPI, Association of Professional Tattooists. What does APTPI stand for?
What is that?
Professional Piercers and Tattooists.
Okay. I'm sure most of you are already aware of the APTPI as well. And also the next thing is a board of directors does not yet exist. If anybody's used to how organizations work, there has to be a board of directors. And I know I'm speaking mostly from American laws, it might be different in different countries, but there is, for every organization, some kind of ruling, governing body, and it's usually called the board of directors. To set up a corporation, though, we have to have a board of directors, so there will be one in the very, very near future. Legal entity update. The big problem is membership and board of directors. What I would love to be able to do is to have an organization that's pre-set up with members, and members could vote on a board of directors. We don't have that. To set up the actual organization, we have to have a board of directors first. How do you figure out who these people are going to be? We've tried to discuss it online. We've tried to get people to give their opinions. We've taken from what we've heard from everybody, and we've sort of decided at this point we're probably just going to move the work group into the first roles of the board of directors. Now, I know some people are already upset about that, but we're just trying to move this organization forward. We do have a lawyer and accountant. So you need a lawyer to help set up the corporation. You need an accountant to deal with the tax end of it. This is an expensive process. We've already put up the money for the retainer and the legal fees. So this is coming out of our personal pockets to get this off the ground. I'm really hoping that at some point, once this organization gets going, that we can get paid back for this money. But at this point, we've been shelling out our own money to make this happen. Articles of incorporation and bylaws. I don't want to bore you guys by going into this in any detail or too much detail, but since this is going online, I'm going to cover just a few quick things. Part of setting up a corporation is you need an article of incorporation and you need bylaws. The Association of Professional Piercers has already done all this work. They have been very generous and just given us theirs for our lawyer to look at and be able to modify it to fit our needs. So this will reduce the amount of time to get the organization up and running, and it'll reduce the amount of money we have to spend to get it up and running. Our next step, and what we're working on right now, is setting up a nonprofit corporation. Now, every country is different, so this is going to be based out of actually Texas in the United States for several different reasons, mainly because the laws are very favorable tax-wise in Texas. It could be set up in any country. We're just moving forward with the United States for right now. And to set up the nonprofit, we have to do a few legal things. Basically, figure out what type of nonprofit it was going to be. And again, this is nothing you really need to know. I'm just doing this for transparency to let everybody know what we're doing. The corporation that both the lawyer and the accountant has selected for us is what's called a 501c6. It's the exact same as the Association of Professional Piercers. Again, we're working off of their business model to move forward. This is what a 501c6 is, and again, I don't want to bore you by sitting all through the legal jargon, but it's essentially a business league, even though we're not necessarily taking money. Some of us do, some of us don't, but internationally as a whole, we can't say that it's something we take money. We still qualify as a business or individual businesses, so we're basically like a business league. The one thing that you see on the second mark there was that organizations may engage in limited political activity, so that means that we can still go talk to legislators if they're trying to pass laws regulating body suspension. What we can't do is pay off the government and try to put in political figures into power, and it's not something that really I expect us to even try and do. Corporate formation. This is what we have to do to get a corporation, a nonprofit corporation off the ground. First, we have to file a certificate of formation with the Texas Secretary of State. It's a very simple piece of paperwork. It's only one piece of paper. However, in that piece of paper, we have to have a board of directors. And that's what's slowing us down, is we have to stick the names on there. We have to prepare and file articles of incorporation with the Secretary of State. Again, it's a bunch of legal paperwork that the lawyer is getting paid. I forget how much an hour, but he's getting paid by the hour to just sit there and draft these things. We have to draft and adopt bylaws. And what the bylaws are, and this is actually somewhat important, the bylaws are going to be the governing laws for the organization. It's going to talk about what we can do, what we can't do, what type of membership we have, who gets to vote. All of these things are going to be included in the bylaws. And again, we're going to work sort of off the APPs. We have to conduct an organizational meeting of the board of directors. So basically, all the board of directors have to get together and say, yes, article of incorporation, yes, bylaws, sign, and send it off. Once all of this happens, we're still looking at about 6 or 9 months before everything really gets off the ground. So our projected time is still not until well into next year, and hopefully we will get this organization started by the time the association, by the time Dallas Suscon happens in April. We also are needing to obtain an employer identification number. Again, this is US law, but we need this so that we can set up a bank account. This is what's more important for you guys. We need volunteers for committees. We need an outreach committee. Now, outreach committee has actually, we've gotten quite a bit of people writing emails asking to join the outreach committee. I'll have the email contact at the very end, but it's simple. It's isa@suspension.org. You don't have to live in the United States or actually anywhere for that matter, because we're doing this a lot via email. And I feel personally that the outreach is extremely important right now, because there are suspension groups all over the world doing suspension. And there's 2 ways we can, or there's actually 3 things we can do about it. We can completely ignore it. We can attack them for not doing things cleanly or correctly, or we can reach out to them and try to help them. And I personally feel that that is the right direction. We need to work together. And something like the ISA will give us a unified voice to reach out. And when people say, hey, I'm looking to do suspension, but I live in this country where people don't do it, who do I talk to? And if we have some sort of legal entity where they can come to and say, hey, I'm interested in suspension, I think it would be a really great thing. We also need some kind of design committee. I'm very surprised more people have not volunteered for this. We put a post online a couple places. We've only gotten 2 logos so far. It'd be really great if anybody has any sort of artistic ability that likes this idea of this organization, could submit some logos or some graphics or some, we need people to actually be able to produce some sort of visual images for us. And fundraising. We need to, at some point, figure out how to bring money in, because of the fact that right now it's coming out of the pockets of the work group. Eventually, it'd be really nice if people could actually figure out a way to bring more revenue in. Unfortunately, a 501c6 does not allow people to write off their donations in their taxes. It's just unfortunately one of the rules. But we can still fundraise. We can have raffles, and we can sell things, and we can put on events where a portion of the event goes to the ISA, and so on and so forth. We've already had 1 open meeting, and that meeting was in Las Vegas. And here, it's a pretty long URL, but if you go to that URL, you can click on that, and the meeting is online, and it's about an hour and 10 minutes long. I do want to bring up recently, actually today, on the internet, somebody criticized the meeting, saying that we did talk a lot about, or I talked a lot about, money, and the people who are part of the work group are part of the work group because they have money. And I would like to address that and say that no, the work group was not organized with people that have money. The work group was organized with people that have been able to dedicate finances to the organization. I know it sounds about the same, but really it's not. We all have our own personal levels of finances. It's just what we do with them. I think that, for instance, Hova is a prime example of this, that most of everything that he makes goes into suspension. And it's his dedication. He could easily not spend the money on suspension and do something else with his life, but then he doesn't become as dedicated as a person as he could be. So it's, by being a part of the work group does not mean that suddenly you're part because you're cooler or you're richer or you have more to offer. It's just more about how much you've dedicated to the industry. And I think that besides the 7 people you saw in the beginning, a lot more people could fit into the board of directors. And hopefully once we get this organization up and running, more people will get involved and be able to run this organization, because I can tell you I'm old and I'm tired and I just want to get it set up and let somebody else run it for a while. This presentation was hopefully pretty short and not too boring for you guys. I know most of it was legal jargon, but again, this was going on the internet, so I wanted to make sure that people who had those questions were getting those answered as well. The easiest way to contact this organization is through the email, and it's simple. It's isa@suspension.org. Whether you have questions, whether you want to get involved, whether you have opinions, I think that everyone's opinion matters. And at this point, all we've done is had a meeting in the US. So right now we're very United States heavy with people that are interested. I would like to see the European community get involved. I would like to see the European community be big, if not bigger than the American involvement, because I want to see it go beyond. I think that like the Russians are huge right now. There's something like 50 teams in Russia or more potentially. In Brazil, there's numerous teams working in Brazil that don't have a lot of contact with the Northern Hemisphere at all. I know there's multiple groups down in New Zealand and Australia, which they don't have the financial burden that they do in Brazil, but they do have the geographical burden of traveling to Europe, traveling to the United States is very difficult for them. So I would really like to get them more involved and reach out to them as well. That is pretty much my entire presentation. Let me get back to our mission statement here, because this pretty much says exactly what we're all about. Does anyone have any questions, comments, input?
Good job.
I can tell you really quickly why I'm so personally vested in this. One of the members of my team had her daughter taken away from her because of her involvement in suspension. What happened was, actually she's not part of my team anymore because of her lawyer says that she can no longer be involved in suspension if she wants her child back. But what happened was that when she went to custody court with her ex, he showed pictures of suspension in court, and the judge decided because of her involvement in suspension that she was no longer a fit parent. And that hurt me, that stabbed me. And I felt responsible in some way because she was a part of my team and my family. It was things like this that I feel that it's important to have a unified voice. They just outlawed body suspension in a northern part of Arizona, which is a state in the United States. And I would hate for it to be outlawed anywhere. And luckily places like Oslo, where they're very accepting and open, the rest of the world isn't like that. And there are certain countries and certain areas within countries where they don't understand or accept what we do. And I would very much like to have a voice of hundreds and thousands of people who can speak up and say, hey, what we do is not wrong, we should not be shamed, we should not be put in jail for what we do. And the only way I think this is going to happen is if we get together as one organization. The ISA is just an idea at this point. We are determined to get it off the ground, but we're not going to be able to do it without everyone's involvement. And we need passionate people to be involved. We need people on all levels. And we need people from all countries who speak multiple different languages of all ages, skin types, doesn't matter. We need everyone. Yes?
Do you think that I see that the mission statement's been updated, removing the legal part, but do you think that once the ISA is being set up and working, will have any weight, at least in the US, as far as...
Okay, the question was that he was wondering about the mission statement. I believe you're saying, can the mission statement be changed? Is that what you're asking?
I know that it's been changed. You explained that it's been changed from initially it was like
right.
talking with legislators and now it's not.
Mm-hmm.
But you're saying that one of the hopes is that it's not going to be illegal or the situation like the one with your friend is not going to happen.
Well, at this point, this is going to be the mission statement that we're going to have into the corporate filing. We can always change the mission statement. That's not a problem at any point. However, the word legislators raises a red flag, and it could stop us from setting up the organization. So we just removed the word. However, due to the fact that we're going to be disseminating information to practitioners, the general public, healthcare, dealing with legislatures does fit into that as well. So it's not beyond the scope of the organization. It was advice from our lawyer and also from the accountant to remove that word because of the what's going on in American politics right now.
Sorry, yes, I understand that. My question was more like if you think that the ISA in time will add some weight into legislation?
Oh,
do you think
I firmly believe that yes, that the ISA will be hopefully one of the bodies that legislators will at least come to and speak to, because like for instance, APTPI, APP, APT in the United States, I know there's multiple other organizations, a lot of times when legislators write laws, they will go online and look up like, oh, well, there's an organization called the Association of Professional Piercers. If we're gonna write laws in our community, we should contact them because it makes their workload easier. So I do hope that yes, that the ISA will be like that, that if a country decides or a state or a city decides that they want to write laws about suspension, that they would approach an organization like the ISA or hopefully the ISA and say, hey, we want to write laws, can we get some information? And we say, sure, here, we can give you information, we can give you medical studies, we can give you existing laws, we can show you statistics, and hopefully we'll be able to produce all of these things and say, here's this information to help with the process. Yes?
Maybe you should mention something about how meetings like this will help us find people that maybe have certain skill sets that can be useful, like at the Vegas one.
Yeah, what he just spoke of was, what Mike said was that these meetings are very important because we are able to connect with people with different skill sets. At the meeting that we had in Vegas, it was fantastic because we had someone who was a social worker. I don't even believe he's involved in suspension, but he finds it very interesting. What?
Not at all.
No, he's not involved, but he finds it interesting. So he came out. Well, so much for turn off your cell phone. So he came out to the meeting to check it out, and he happens to be a social worker that works with children, and so it was very beneficial that we met him, and we met actually someone else who Steph also, who works with in the psychiatric community, and so we're hoping that every time we put a meeting like this together, we can find people that have skill sets that can help us. Any other questions or comments? I know you guys would rather hang than listen to me talk for sure. Okay, well if anybody doesn't have anything, feel free to pull me aside because I know it's kind of difficult to stand up and speak in front of the public sometimes. So if you have questions, you can speak to myself, you can speak to Hova, of course. Mike Coons can answer questions for you. We would love to have anyone and everyone involved on any level, from the very, very small projects to very, very big. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.